Morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, October 16th, 9 a.m. This meeting is being streamed live for public to attend and recorded as a public record. The recording of the meeting will be available at www.ncwildlife.gov. Let me remind everybody to silence their phones. I call on Commissioner Monty Crump, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stand and join the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd now like to call on Commissioner David Boyle for the invocation.
Would bow your heads, please. Dear God, we want to thank you for this day. Thank you for what you've done for us. Look over this meeting today and guide us in our decisions in your will. Thank you for the staff you have put in place here today to manage and nurture the vast resources you've given us. Give us all safe travels home after the meeting. Keep us in your prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Would now like to call on Margot Meckler for the roll call. Margot.
Good morning. I'm going to do a roll call for our October 16th, 2025 meeting. Chairman Mark Craig.
Here.
Vice Chairman Landon Smith.
Here.
David Boyle.
Here.
John Coley. Wes Seegers.
Here.
Tommy Bongle.
Here.
Tom Berry.
Here.
Brad Stanback.
Here.
Jim Ruffin.
Here.
Ray Clifton.
Here.
Steve Wyndham.
Here.
Bonnie Crump.
Here.
John Stone.
Here.
Steve Rogers. John Alexander. Tom Hayslip.
Here.
J.C. Cole. Mike Alford. Joe Budd.
Here.
Reed Smith.
Here.
Justin Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody of the mandatory ethics inquiry. North Carolina General Statute 138A-15 mandates that the commission chair shall remind all commissioners of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest under this chapter. And the chair also inquires as to whether there is any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the commission at this time. It is the duty of each commissioner who is aware of such personal conflict of interest or the appearance of conflict to notify the chair of the same. Are there any? Thank you. I'd like to call on Margot Meckler for notice of commission appointments.
I'm going to do my first item on the agenda is notice of commission appointments as seen in exhibits A1 through A4. We received appointments from Governor Stein of Hayden Rogers for a term ending of June 30th, 2029. J.C. Cole, Steve Wyndham, and Jim Ruffin for terms ending June 30th, 2031. As seen in exhibits A5 through A9, we received appointments from Senate Pro Tem Berger of Mark Craig, Tom Berry, John Alexander, Landon Zimmer, and Joe Budd, term ending June 30th, 2027. As seen in exhibits A10 through A14, we received appointments from Speaker Hall of John Stone, John Coley, Ray Clifton, Tommy Bongle, and Reed Smith for terms ending June 30, 2027. And lastly, as seen in exhibit A15, received appointment of Commissioner Troxler of Justin Boyd for a term ending June 30, 2027. My next item on the agenda is the review of the 2025 Statement of Economic Interest filed by Justin Boyd. The Ethics Commission did not find an actual conflict of interest, but a potential for a conflict of interest. And they stated, Mr. Boyd disclosed that he is the operations manager for 3B Farms and a partner of the Coast and Grading Incorporated. In addition, he disclosed that his spouse earns income from the business management company Murphy Family Ventures. As such, Mr. Boyd has potential for conflict of interest and should exercise appropriate caution in the performance of his public duties should an issue involving any entity in which he or his spouse has a financial interest come before the commission for the class.
Thank you, Margaret. I'd next like to call for approval of July 24th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, discussions? All in favor? Thank you. I'd like to next call on Jason Cottle, our Chief Financial Officer, to present our financial status report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. We'll begin with an overview of our revenues and expenditures in our general fund and capital improvement funds. These balances are as of August 31st of 2025. Excuse me. Total revenue in our general fund was $28,314,304.59. Total expenditures in the same $28,109,872.65. Our fund balance as of August 31st was $21,317,573.95. For our capital improvement fund, overall revenues were $3,916,196.12. Total expenditures were up $1,989,897.06. Total fund balance in our capital improvement fund as of August 31st was $6,401,031.62. Any questions before we move to our endowment fund? Our overall endowment fund balance as of August 31st is again at a record high. This time it's $230,621,675.69. 33 million of that is in our short-term holdings, 197 million in our equity investment fund. And again, that allocation is about 85% equities, 15% short-term. That seems to be the landing point where we've held for the last several months. Total expendable income earned in the endowment fund to date is just shy of $90 million. Factoring out our known obligations, there's about 33.5 million remaining for use. And as I mentioned yesterday, our Setzer hatchery renovation, was recently increased by about an additional $9 million as the construction estimates on that have come back higher than anticipated. Any questions? And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd next like to call on Brad Howard to present the Lawrence G. Dietrich Small Game Award.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Lawrence G. Dietrich Small Game Award is given annually or when appropriate to individuals, organizations, and whose actions significantly and positively impact any of North Carolina's small game populations, which include northern bobwhites, rough grouse, squirrels, rabbits, and a host of other non-game species as well. The award serves to recognize efforts in habitat management, education, research, the hunting heritage program, or other meaningful contributions. In some cases, small game populations may benefit significantly from efforts focused on non-game or other species management with similar habitat requirements. The award is named in honor of Lawrence G. Dietrich of Rocky Mount, who served as Wildlife Commissioner from 1993 to 2001. Commissioner Dietrich promoted efforts to address declining populations of bobwhites and other species dependent on early successional habitat. After his death in September of 2002, a group of Commissioner Dietrich's friends made memorial contributions to the Wildlife Endowment Fund to support an annual small game award in his honor. The Wildlife Resources Commission created this prestigious award in 2003. Nominations for this award can be received in two categories: individual and organization. This year, we will be presenting one award in the individual category. Sadly, our recipient, Mr. Walter Cross, passed away in May of this year. Walter's family is here with us today to accept this award, and I'm going to try to summarize an excellent nomination letter highlighting an unbelievable 37-year career. Mr. Cross worked for the North Carolina Forest Service, and at the time of his passing, he was the longest serving active Forest Service employee in the state at 37 years of service. As a county ranger for Randolph County, he coordinated the delivery of technical guidance to forest landowners across the county and provided landowners with knowledge necessary to manage their property for both economics and ecological sustainability. While sharing the same job description as other county rangers statewide, Walter rose above the economics of forest management by fostering willingness to meet landowners' wildlife objectives while successfully managing their forest. He was involved in several projects that helped convert crop fields to mixed hardwood forests along the URA River, leading to excellent protection of water quality and the aquatic species that thrived from there, along with excellent habitat for wildlife species, for example, rabbits and woodcock. He was a proponent and supporter of landowners who wanted to plant slower growing shortleaf pines instead of faster growing loblollies, and in many instances foregoing a portion of income in that process. His willing to do so allowed establishment of many acres of this declining species, and the slower canopy closure of shortleaves leads to longer periods of time for early successional wildlife habitat under the pines. Many of you might remember we've discussed a couple of times through the years the Grissom property and the 80 acres of native and volunteer early successional habitat that is managed there. These landowners have been recognized for their habitat work for several organizations, including the Wildlife Federation's Governor Award. Walter was an instrumental player in the management of that property and ultimately became the burn boss who conducted burns and learned many things in the process. It is estimated that Walter conducted/led at least 1,500 acres of burning on that property through his career. Remember, it's a 280 piece of property, 80-acre piece of property. Walter didn't stop on the ground. His impact went beyond that. He and his handiwork were often highlighted in events for the likes of the North Carolina Prescribed Fire Council, the North Carolina Land and Water Trust, Wake County Audubon, and hundreds of private landowners across the county and to some extent across the state. While conducting the training, he rarely took credit for himself. He mostly spoke of the partners and his coworkers. So I'm going to end with reading the final paragraph of the nomination letter. First and foremost, Walter Cross was a good man who will be missed by all those who got the chance to work with him. Walter's impact on the forest of Randolph County and will remain for decades. He chose a career to serve the landowners and natural resources in North Carolina. During his career, he built a set of skills that he chose to utilize to improve and protect the natural resources he cared so deeply for. The career, the skills, and the care for nature is not uncommon with natural resource professionals. However, Walter's willingness to go beyond his job responsibilities to use his talents for the management of early successional habitats and other critical wildlife habitats is much less common. His ability to safely, efficiently, and effectively carry out highly technical prescribed burns has improved habitat not only on the acres that were covered by his burn plans, but on many acres managed by those who saw his handiwork and wanted the same thing on their property. For these reasons, Walter Cross is more than worthy of receiving the 2005 Diedrich Small Game Award. Walter's wife and his family and some of his coworkers are here today with us, and his family is going to accept the award on his behalf. I will read the pack. This says, in recognition of Walter's many years of dedication to the management of our natural resources, especially for his commitment to prescribed burning on private lands that significantly improved habitat for all early successional wildlife, and further his efforts increased public knowledge and of prescribed burning and interest in small game conservation. The mic is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank those who nominated Dad for this award based on their experiences working with him through the years. My family and I are honored to be able to accept on Dad's behalf. Everything Dad did was about taking care of the things that needed it. He poured his heart into protecting our wildlife and natural resources. Everyone who knew him personally and professionally can attest to that. I know that if Dad was still here with us, he would have accepted this award humbly with a deep appreciation for the recognition before getting back to work. Thank you so much for allowing us to celebrate his dedication to wildlife conservation and resource management. We are and always will be very proud of him. Thank you.
Hold on just a second. I got one more thing to give you. This is our traditional practical gift for our non-game Diedrich non-game award winners. And this one probably is one of the most appropriate we've ever given. So I'm gonna give this one to you. And this isn't decorative. This is meant to be used. So go forth and burn some stuff. Congratulations to you guys.
This time we'll take a short break for photographs outside. I'd like to call for the committee reports. Up first, Ray Clifton for boat and safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boat and Safety Committee met yesterday morning. Will Fasola, policy analysis, presented a proposed rulemaking notice of text for general provisions of local water safety regulations. Next, Ms. Betsy Haywood and our No Wake Zone coordinator walked the committee through a proposed permanent rulemaking notice of text for Beaufort, Dare, Rowan, and Pitt counties, as well as the town of Nags Head. Next, Major Arnold then briefed the committee on an upcoming rulemaking for safety zone near North Carolina Highway 28 bridge on the Little Tennessee River. The committee endorsed the proposed permanent rulemaking items, which were presented later for consideration this morning. And after that, there was no further business and the committee adjourned.
Thank you, Ray. Next up, the Finance Audit Compliance Committee. I'd like to call on Commissioner Monty Crump.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Audit Compliance Committee met yesterday morning. Internal Audit Director Elizabeth Davis gave an update on internal audit engagements, reporting on progress, completed projects, and observation statuses. Administrative operations update was also provided, including the introduction of the new internal auditor, one, Sanjay Nair. Additionally, key performance measures for the internal audit function were presented to the committee for feedback. With no concerns identified, these measures will be used to assess the function going forward, and results will be reported routinely to the committee. Finally, the results of the Council of Internal Audit required self-assessment maturity model were presented and indicated that the internal audit function is in compliance with required standard. CFO Jason Cottle presented a comparison between the current and prior fiscal years, highlighting the revenue and expenditure activity in both the general fund and capital improvement funds. An update was presented as to the current fund balance, the asset allocation of the agency's endowment fund, noting the recent approval from the Office of State Budget and Management of the agency's request to increase the budget of the Setzer Hatchery renovation project in response to revised construction estimates. Lastly, the topic of increasing license fees in response to CPIU increase was introduced, noting the restricted timeline necessary to meet an implementation date of July 1st, 2026. Revenue collections were compared to initial projections, highlighting the potential impact of fire resistance. Staff will bring this topic back before the board at the December meeting with updated data and analysis. Being no further business in discussion, the meeting was adjourned. Additionally, since the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, several members have come forward with a discussion about considering Setzer. Jason, if you and I have a conversation before the December meeting about do we need to move any money further from equities to the STEM to cover that, is it December, or what an appropriate time period for that is. So I did address that with several members. We had a discussion on that last night. I'll call you and we'll move forward with having a recommendation at the December meeting as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Is there any questions?
There being none, thank you, Commissioner Crump. We'll move on to the Big Game Committee. Commissioner David Hoyle.
Big Game Committee met yesterday, had an excellent meeting. North Carolina State students presented the results from the urban deer study that has been just finished up. The students presented various aspects of the study with topics ranging from population estimates, deer survival and mortality, population dynamics, and some interesting findings related to human component of deer management. The information from the study will inform the agency on many levels when it comes to our management of deer, especially in highly developed landscape. Staff gave a quick update on the status of the eastern bear population estimate study, which is in the final stage of analysis and will be used along with our western estimate to help inform and develop the next bear management plan, which is scheduled for completion late next year. Having no further business, the committee adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Holt. Next, Small Game Committee, Commissioner Jim Ruffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Small Game Committee met yesterday and received several great presentations. John Eisenhower, the Wildlife Habitat Coordinator from the Wildlife Management Division, gave an overview of the many private land programs and activities available for private landowners. Then he discussed producing a survey of private landowners who have worked cooperatively with agency staff. The survey identified both opportunities and barriers to private land habitat work and can assist in informing efforts on the ground and in our marketing and research and outreach. At the conclusion of Mr. Eisenhower's presentation, Commissioner Tommy Fondel and Wes Seeger both expressed their tremendous support of the land management program and staff based on their experience. Next, Fairleigh Malin, our Director of Communications, Marketing, and Digital Engagement, expressed how some information from the survey and input from agency staff will be used to help development of the web page to aid the public in finding all the opportunities that are available. Next, Brandon Miner, The Northern Piedmont Forestry Manager from the Land and Water Access Division gave an excellent update and overview of the ongoing management of Caswell Small Game Focal Area. Management activities are currently on schedule. There are more timber harvest planned for early 2026, and the burn acres continue to increase. Finally, Chris Stalls, the Piedmont Ecoregion Supervisor, presented on the management efforts at the Tillery Game Lands and the opportunities that will continue for those acres in the future. Having no further business, the committee adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutherford. Next, the Land Acquisition and Property Committee, Commissioner Tom Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Land Acquisition and Property Committee met yesterday at 8:45, October 15th. The committee succumbed to extreme pressure to make it meeting very quick and took on the largest monetary portfolio we've ever taken. Anyway, the committee reviewed and approved 12 phase 1 land acquisition proposals. The committee also reviewed and recommended approval of 4 phase 2 land acquisition proposals. Committee reviewed and recommended denial of 1 utility easement request at the Sand Hills Game Land. The phase 2 acquisition proposal and easement request will be noted later in this meeting. Committee adjourned at the duly noted at 3:30 p.m., Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrett. Next was the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee met yesterday and received a presentation on the draft of the 2026 through 2035 North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission's strategic plan, which builds on our current framework and outlines revised goals and strategies for the next 10 years. Committee members met and discussed this proposed revision with consensus to move the revised plan to the full commission for consideration. There being no further business, this meeting was adjourned. The Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole met yesterday afternoon and started with presentations on public comments received during the 2026-2027 annual rulemaking cycle for inland fisheries, land and water access, and wildlife management rules. A summary of the public comments received on changes to the wildlife captivity and rehabilitation rules was also shared. Adoption of these rules and amendments will be considered later this morning. The committee received an update on conservation access paths. After a robust discussion, no action was taken and further consideration will be given at future meetings. The proposed 2026 Wildlife Resource Commission meeting schedule was also shared and will be presented later this morning for consideration. There being no further business, this committee adjourned. The next item on our agenda, I'd like to call on Colonel Ben Meyer to introduce our speaker for the agency spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would like to introduce actually our training staff, which I don't know if y'all have had the pleasure of meeting today, but Lieutenant Darby Enoch and Sergeant Garrett Gooch. As you know, Darby is our training director who hires and oversees the training of every single officer we hire for the first year of their time with us and sets the standard and of the Wildlife Commission to them. And Sergeant Garrett Gooch, he is the assistant training director who also assists Darby in the day-to-day activities of these things and keeping us in compliance with DOJ, because that is a tall task, because it takes a lot of training to be in law enforcement. And as you know, since we're in the hospitality business now, they are our hospitality managers at Samarkand. So if you would welcome them, I appreciate it.
Good morning. Like Colonel Meyer said, my name is Darby Enoch. I'm the training director for the law enforcement division. And we're going to try to do our best to give an overview of our most recent 61st Basic Academy in as close to a 15-minute window as possible. It is a 8-month-long program, so we're cramming a lot into the presentation.
Building on that, my name's Gary Gooch. I'm the assistant training director stationed at Samarkand. So today we're going to be talking about boards in the future. It's the title that we came up with, but we're going to get into overall our basic, our traditional and our advanced. We'll provide you an overview of the 61st Basic Academy that graduated January of 25. We had 33 recruits, 22 of those being traditional, which they had to come through the basic law enforcement training that's required through the state of North Carolina. And then we hired 11 what we call accelerated applicants, which were prior sworn or had a year sworn through the state of North Carolina already. It's a 30-week law enforcement training split into 2 phases. we did the BLET portion, which is the basic law enforcement training, and then we did our wildlife advanced portion, which is wildlife specific to what they're going to get throughout their whole career. So we'll go over that. The first phase, the first 3 weeks is going to be their consistent of in processing, introductions, HR, onboarding, issuing gear and equipment, and then the marshal development training, which I'll let Lieutenant Enoch get into that phase of it.
So the marshal development training is kind of a staple portion of our academy. Specifically in the first couple of weeks, this is where we set the standard and expectations of every wildlife officer throughout their entire career. So at this portion, we set the standard of excellence, and we demand that every one of our recruits give us 100% of their efforts 100% of the time. So ultimately what we do during this portion of our training is we remove the individual ego and we focus on a teammate mentality. And overall, we are more concerned about the success of the team than we are the individual's performance. This also allows us the ability to introduce stress in a controlled environment. As I'm sure most of you are probably aware, with the further we go along in generations, being faced with adversity, what I consider adversity is nothing compared to what my grandparents considered adversity, and that's going to continue to be the case. So this is an opportunity for us to, in a controlled environment, introduce stress. We do this through drill and ceremony, which is like marching and military facing movements. We do this through physical fitness, uniform inspections, room inspections, and the instructors that we have that implement this, we call them marshal development instructors. It's similar to the Marine Corps drill instructors or your Army drill sergeants. I'm sure most of you have seen a variation of that. They're hand-selected, 100% professionalism. Everything that we ask the recruit to do, we've always also done ourselves, and we do it with them. And the overall intent that we're trying to do here is teach them how to make sound decisions in chaotic situations. So this is going to be a snapshot of the first day and just kind of a little bit of what that looks like. You'll see that the black pants, black hat, and black boots are our drill instructors. They're doing the exercises, they're explaining the why and everything.
So I mentioned earlier about the basic law enforcement training. We'll get into that now. It's most people you hear BLET, but it's over 800 hours of curriculum, 868 to be exact. It is standardized across the state. This is a state mandated program that they have to be a sworn law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina, that we teach through our agency. This is administered by community colleges or academies, like I just mentioned, and then is required for all certified officers in North Carolina to be a law enforcement officer. The purpose of the basic law enforcement training is to produce professional, effective law enforcement officers, emphasize ethics, justice, and community service, prepares the recruit for the state certification, which we'll talk later on about their state exam that they have to pass to be able to be sworn in. And then also kind of get into some of the main topics that is taught throughout the basic law enforcement training program.
So again, with this past academy, we started with two separate programs, traditional and lateral transfer for fire law enforcement. So while the traditional program is doing BLET, the accelerated lateral transfer, they were doing on-the-job training with the field trained officers that they were assigned. That was possible. So one of the things we wanted to highlight that we emphasize in our training academy is officer health and wellness. This is kind of the three triangle approach that you're looking at, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. So we exceed the minimum state requirements in our physical fitness. A typical week in our academy looks like 4 PT sessions throughout a 5-day week cycle. Typically a 1-hour session early in the morning, somewhere between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. We do everything from cardiovascular endurance, which is running, training, rowers, treadmill, ellipticals, bikes, to body weight exercises, circuit training, and then we incorporate weights, sandbags, and that type of stuff into our training. So the overall goal is to implement good habits, healthy habits for physical fitness, and just overall well-being, and then just continue to build upon habits if they already have some of the. So this is just a kind of an overview of one of the kind of the pillar workouts that we've implemented in our academy. This is 5 months into the program. This is the Memorial Day Murph workout. We've posted this on our social media page for several years now. This is an opportunity for us to kind of assess the improvement in our applicants' physical fitness. It gives them a standard to kind of reach. This is a pretty strenuous workout. It's a 1 mile run followed by 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then you finish with another 1 mile run after you complete that. And you can't do one stage until you complete the next one. And all wearing typically a 20-pound or greater weighted vest. So it's also an opportunity for us to pay respect to the men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Another thing that our academy participates in every year is the North Carolina Special Olympics torch run. This year, our academy participated in 3 separate events ranging from 3 miles to 7 miles. And this is just a video of one of the torch runs that we participated in that was posted on our Facebook. Another, if anybody has any questions at any point, feel free to raise your hand. We can call or anything.
Another main topic that they'll go through in the basic law enforcement training is the law enforcement driver training. It teaches them the emergency response, and then also you do regard the safety of others when they're using the emergency response, either heeding to stop signs or stop lights as they're pursuing and just traveling safe while in emergency response driving. Pursuit technique. The black car that you'll see in the front is what we call the rabbit car. It's driven by an instructor, and the recruit will be in the silver car here, the Crown Vic, with an instructor being evaluated on their driving techniques during an emergency pursuit. It's a checklist, check off to make sure that they're following all the required things that they need to as they're pursuing the suspect vehicle or the rabbit car. Obviously, the suspect doesn't have to stop at stop signs. This is fun training, and another opportunity to deal with stress and as control of an environment as you can get it. Not going at like crazy high speeds, but definitely tight turns with little room for error. Another main topic that they get in basic law enforcement training is also the first responder certification, which is your basic first aid. This is basic emergency medical care, CPR and trauma response, and coordinating with EMS, kind of giving them that foundation of what to address if they come to a traumatic scene and how to the next steps on getting more aid to that person.
Is that a blindfold?
It's a head bandage, and then they're applying a tourniquet there. It's one of the practicals in their lesson plans there, but self-care and then also giving care to somebody that's has more injuries. We also expose all of our recruits to CS gas, which is a controlled chemical agent that's used to disperse typically unlawful assemblies or protests. So they get exposed to this. There's multiple reasons. One, they get to understand the importance of protective equipment, effective use of that equipment. And then 2, also, if they're ever in these type of situations, assisting in these environments, they're able to work through and fight through if they are exposed themselves. If anybody in here has ever been exposed to CS gas, if you're never been exposed to it, you'll think you're dying, but you're really not. If you have any sinus issues, so we clear it up. So controlled or compliance and control tactics. This is a pretty extensive block that we go through, and we focus on verbal and nonverbal communication, specifically indicators of pre-assault or combative individuals that we're coming in contact with. We prioritize and focus a lot on de-escalation and the ability to communicate. It's one of the things that we pride ourselves on as wildlife officers because of the environments that we work in. But then we also go through the entire use of force continuum, and that can just be verbal communication, soft hand techniques, joint lock, body manipulation, and then all the way up to deadly force. This block in particular focuses on handcuffing, controlling, and restraining techniques for so this is a video. All of us are carrying the new Taser 10s that we have.
This is a less than lethal force option that we have at our disposal. That they're very effective. All of our recruits are required to be exposed to this. Again, multiple reasons. The biggest reason is so that they understand its capability. It's called NMI, which is neuromuscular incapacitation. But when you're hit properly with the taser, you're completely locked up. I mean, I've heard the Colonel say this 100 times. I mean, somebody can literally hold the trigger and come up and saw your head off. There's nothing you can do about it because your muscles are completely locked. So it's important for officers to know the capabilities of what they have and then what would happen if somebody were to use it on them. So it's really important to be able to maintain it and retain it yourselves. And then also it helps with courtroom testimony and being able to articulate, these. So I will say, we've had commissioners come to some of our driver's training in the past. It's an open invitation for anything that we're doing in our academy. If you want to come and see any of the training that we're hosting, all you got to do is call or come down. We'd be more than willing to host you. Kudos to Kyle. Kyle's the only non-sworn agency employee that I'm aware of that has volunteered to be exposed. If anybody wants to sign up, we'll have a roster whenever we get done with the training. But this is a very quick 5-second cycle. Exactly. I'll walk in that too. Longest 5 seconds.
Another big block that's required through the state is the firearms training. It will teach them firearm safety and handling, shooting accuracy and judgment, and then the legal use of deadly force. So they train on knowing the parameters of when to use and when not to use, and also the law that stands behind that, and the general statutes for that. This is going to be a quick snapshot of Recruit Stewart with a moving target that they implemented into the new BLET curriculum. It's called the BLET 25. Where they implemented the moving target instead of it being a stationary target.
There's over 100 hours of firearms training alone just in the BLET program. This is just a slow start to field officers, basic fundamentals and work up to being able to shoot, move, and communicate with firearms.
The next block that they just implemented in the new 25 BLET program is a standardized field sobriety test, which we've been doing for many years now, even outside of that. So it's good to see that they've actually made this a state requirement. Used to, you'd have to get it once you graduated. If you went to another agency, you would be sent to that if possible, if they will allow you, but now it's implemented in their state recommended program. But it helps them with DWI and BWI enforcement. And its NHTSA standards, gives them all to make sure they're all standardized. And then it helps them with the detection to understand what they're looking at and what they're seeing. And then documentation when it comes to court, documentation and being prepared for their court cases when it comes to the DWI, which is driving while impaired, and the BWI, voting while impaired.
All right, so this is the phase 1 completion. So for the traditional program, they completed over 1,000 hours of training at the academy. Exceeding the minimum mandate of 868. They have to take a 300-question written comprehensive state exam of all the topics that were covered during the BLET program. And then once they successfully complete that state exam, they are eligible to become probationary law enforcement officers in the state of North Carolina. So it was at this time that the lateral transfers came back to San Marcan for their on-the-job field training, and then they merged back into one category in phase 2, which is what we consider our bread and butter. This is where you become part of the legacy. You really start to become a wildlife officer. We're biased, obviously, but we think that we're some of the best trained law enforcement in the country. This is our conservation law enforcement focus. We focus solely on the responsibilities and roles of the wildlife officer. We consider it to be more of your intermediate and advanced level courses. This block of instruction is somewhere between 8 to 10 weeks, depending on the academy. And it's over 350 hours specific to conservation law.
This is where at phase 2 is the fun part, where you get to get other divisions and everybody trains together. But this is the wildlife law, fishing, hunting, boating, trapping law. Gives them the foundation knowledge of the regulated activities that they're going to be enforcing, and then understanding more in detail the why behind wildlife law, and then the building blocks to understand discretion, agency preferred decision making, and kind of gives them a rundown of what elements go with what statutes and give them a basic understanding of why we have these laws in place and how they affect things in the future. The next one will be the boating law and boating enforcement, boating incident investigation, also water survival, the swim block. And then this helps them develop a foundation for boater education, boating enforcement, boating law, and boat operations. This is a fun block for them where they get hands-on driving the boat, just knowing what they're going to be assigned to when they get in the field and how to operate it, but also be prepared if you're in the water too. It prepares the wildlife officers for water-related incidents and ensures the safety of our constituents and each wildlife officer in our state waterways. So this is a real fun block for them. The next one, this is outside of the BLET, but this is what we call our advanced firearms. This gives them a more well-rounded training on outside of that standard that they have to have for the basic law enforcement training. This is more advanced. It gives them more hands-on, more decision-making, so that way they're making better decisions. Developing their skills, decision-making ability from BLET, like I said, conservation, wildlife, law enforcement focus gives them kind of scenarios that they will be using in woodland or whatever it may be. And then we also introduce simulations training. If you ever heard of that, it's pretty much just a paintball round that's able to go through what our commission issued firearms to simulate it being shot or shot at. But it's just paintball rounds. Intermediate level firearms training, including firing while moving, and as a team, they start working more as a team, and there's more moving targets on this. This is a low light condition decision making training at low light. So you'll see a lot of moving, shooting from cover, and then also being able to utilize their light and low light conditions.
You ready?
Sir. Here he's using cover. The next phase he'll go through is he's in a kneeling position, and then he's making sure there's going to be some suspects there, but also a civilian or a person with a badge to make them make sound decisions while they're shooting, to make sure what their target is and what's beyond it.
So there you had a weapon malfunction. We have dummy rounds that we put in there so that you have to work through it and stay in the fight. So it's half rack ready to get back into it.
So you can see here the badge on that one, then you got the suspect targets there to make sure that they're making sound decisions as they're moving. So we would consider more of an advanced defensive tactics training. We focus on the woodland operations, maritime environments. So as wildlife officers, we are often working alone, maybe invest in pairs. Most of the people that we're interacting with have some type of weapon, whether it's a knife, bank fishing, or some type of firearm, depending on the regulated activity. Inherently, it's dangerous with the contacts and the environments that we're in. So what we're trying to do here is continue to build upon the foundation that we established in BLET and gain confidence with their ability to be prepared in these situations. So these are just going to be a couple snapshot videos of some of the drills that we do. This is myself and one of the students, and we're working on positions. So I started in a position that we would consider a bad position for the student, and he's trying to make just iterative moves to get to a better position to ultimately be able to stand and get up. So this part of the academy is very physically demanding, a very tiresome week for the recruits. Watch. This is just one of the drills that we're doing with recruits. You can see several ones going on at the same time. This is defense against edge weapon attacks of somebody coming after the knife. So we're just pulling out a simulated knife, and they're working on controlling the driving hand, which is the hand with the knife, in a controlled manner. This last drill, kind of the culminating event that we do for the defensive tactics week outside of our scenario-based training is a drill where we have two of the recruits that are doing traffic stops at the same time. We simulate a jump and run for the suspect, so they have to get out of the vehicle, chase the suspect. They then get into a controlled environment with an instructor, and they do a standing grappling situation where they're fighting the instructor for a set amount of time. As soon as they get done with that, they then get on the ground, and they do another grappling or fighting scenario with an instructor on the ground. And then the last thing they do is box each other in a controlled environment. At this point, they've had multiple training sessions,
working on their strikes, do so in a safe manner. This is just a little snapshot of that, the last portion of this drill.
By this time, they're pretty gassed. They're wore out, so you won't see any, upper hooks or anything like that. Just, they're pretty wore out by that time. The next phase we get into is really cool. They like hands-on on this. It brings in the inland fisheries and management folks as well to come together, do fish ID and the duck ID to identify species through hands-on application. They really love the shocking boat this year. They talked about it pretty much the whole time. They had more pictures than they did with the boat operation right after that. So we're going to hopefully continue doing that. And there's Lawrence Dorsey on the boat there that he brought it out. I think it was Lily's Bridge there on Lake Tillery. And then again, it brings in multi-divisional training so they get to know other divisions while they're there. This is a really fun block for me, and I know for Lieutenant Enoch when we went through, but it's a combination of the entire academy. It focuses on resource-related criminal investigations, role-playing scenarios based on the exercise that they'll use throughout their conservation law enforcement careers, and then the many courses on outdoor-related topics, whether it's illegal bear bait, dove bait, or just compliance checks in general, trespassing, LPA violations, game lands violations. At Samarkand, they've allowed us to put some game land signs up to simulate them being on game lands, and then also the purple paint on the trees for the LPA violations as well. Some of these are firsthand own experience that they have that's never grew up hunting or fishing. This is kind of gives them the hands-on with processing deer, skinning deer. This gets all this together for them, and it's a really cool week that they get to enjoy. So throughout the whole academy, there's the core values that pretty much instilled in them throughout the whole thing, and I think it's something that all state law enforcement or just law enforcement in general have to have, and that's the core values that we preach to them as well as being professional throughout their whole career, fair, dedicated, and having integrity, and then also being trustworthy. I think they have to be law enforcement officer, or any law enforcement capacity.
So another thing that we really try to strive to implement into our training is the focus on public engagement and being a public servant in your communities. So we really highlight the focus on communication skills, being able to talk with people. This starts early in the academy, just being able to get in front of the class, talk to your peers, and then also expands to networking and building relationships on campus, Samarkand staff, personnel, and then also members that come to teach. We really focus on the education aspect and understanding the why. If you don't understand the intent of the law and what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing, you really don't understand the overall mission and how to. We focus on teaching education efforts to the public, and then also have empathy with those that you're coming in contact with. And then again, that overall mission, they need to understand their piece of the puzzle within the division so that they can understand the agency's overall mission, so that we can understand the conservation, nationwide. And this essentially completes our academy. They graduated August 1st of this year. I think several were in attendance at that graduation. Like Sergeant talked about, we started 33, we graduated 23. They're in their field training process now. Traditional program did 6 months of field training. The accelerated program did 2.5 months of field training after their 4.5 months on the job training. So they're getting ready to be assigned to permanent duty stations and be out in the field. And the last thing that we just wanted to highlight is the new training center in Samarkand. I really just wanted to express my gratitude. This has been a game changer. This academy was the first academy to train in the facility. We started somewhere and then moved into it, and it's a game changer. We've been after way saying the redheaded stepchild everywhere we go. We make parts, steel facilities, and training aids and materials and people and role players, and now we have a state-of-the-art facility that we can call our own home. And we've hosted several conferences with other divisions. We've hosted conferences with AFLA, other state agencies coming out there and training with us. And it's very clear that, North Carolina is top tier, when it comes to conservation, in general, the conservation law. That concludes our presentation. For the future, answer any questions.
His son-in-law went through the law enforcement training program. And it's now law enforcement officer with the convention. Prior to that, he was in the Marines. And he told me that the physical fitness portion of his training here was much more strenuous than his physical fitness training in the Marines. And it was he also emphasized me that in telling you, he intended that as a compliment, not as criticism. That made it correct.
Yeah, so I speak on that as well. I went through, Army basic training. I went through Army Drill Sergeant School and I went through the Wildlife Academy. And I go through Army basic training and Drill Sergeant School before I go through the Wildlife Academy. It's very mentally physically demanding. So, which the difference is the ratio. You know, in those military environments, you got, you know, 2 drill instructors for 40 students. We have pretty much a 2 ratio. 2 students. So there is no sandbagging or not. When we say we demand excellence and we demand your 100% effort, 100% time.
He validated everything he just said.
A few years ago, I attended a workshop in the Smokies by Jim Corbin from North Carolina Department of Agriculture about ginseng enforcement. And I know he's retired now. I don't know who's replaced him, but that's sort of a specialized niche for Western North Carolina. And there's still some of that. So the officers there know what ginseng is, where to find it, how to enforce.
They're enjoying enforcement. It's a game changer for them because it's good taken as far as enforcement, trespassing and all that good stuff.
So we Melinda Paris, she's one of our recent female graduates that's training up there with John Dooley in Cherokee County. She was telling me that she made her first felony arrest. A lot of the ginseng stuff is associated with drugs, specifically meth. So really, again, that goes back to that inherently dangerous.
You guys are beyond good. Y'all are each commissioner's ambassador in the field. I've been fortunate enough to be associated with you since 2002. And all I can say is professionalism, your dedication as our representatives is unequaled in any law enforcement in the state of North Carolina and all states as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to tell y'all, fantastic job.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all for a great presentation. I've not been here as long as Mr. Wyndham. I'm going on 13 years, but this is the most comprehensive professional presentation we've seen from y'all. Very informative. Thank you very, very much.
Sorry for took up too much now. Trying to get right there with 15, 20 there, so sorry. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Next I'll call on Executive Kyle Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. So I'm presenting Exhibit D, which is the proposed Wildlife Resource Commission meeting schedule for 2026. As presented in the Committee of the Whole yesterday, the commission meetings would be February 19th, April 16th, June 18th, July 30th, October 15th, and December 10th, with committee meetings being the day before.
So moved. I think it was mine. Next up, I'd like to call on Ben Solomon for land and property matters. Oh, excuse me. All in favor? Thank you, Marty. Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Our land acquisition and property matters up for consideration today include 4 phase 2 proposals as well as 1 other property matter. We'll begin with our phase 2 proposals. Exhibit E1 is the Cardinal Drive tract. It is a 62-acre property in Montgomery County. It will be in addition to Uwharrie Game Land. Exhibit E2 is the Gentry Tract. This is a 1.1 acre property in McDowell County that will be in addition to Pisgah game land and will also be used to create a new small boating access area. Exhibit E3 is the Shutt property in Richmond County. This will be in addition to Sandhills game land. And Exhibit E4 is the Washburn Spears Tract. This is in Franklin County. It will be in addition to Chaco Creek game land. The Land Acquisition and Property Committee would like to recommend approval of exhibits E1 through E4.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, then.
Moving forward to Exhibit F. Exhibit F is the Sandhills Game Land Utility Easement Request. The Land Acquisition Committee would like to recommend denial of the Sandhills Utility Easement Request based on conversations and a vote from the committee yesterday.
Do I have a motion to deny?
So moved. Second.
Jim? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I'd like to call on Will Casala. Water safety gonna make it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, everyone. I have one voting safety item for you. This is Exhibit G, Notice of Text for Permanent Amendments to 10F0301 General Provisions. As discussed yesterday, the proposed amendments clarify definitions, update agency contact information, and reorganize rule content. Staff recommend publishing notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Make it second. All in favor? Opposed? Next, we'd like to call on Betsy Haywood.
Good morning, thank you. As was discussed yesterday, October 15th, in the Boating Safety Committee meeting, staff recommends commission approval as recommended by the Boating Safety Committee to publish notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing for 5 water safety rules. First, 10F0303 Beaufort County, amendments to shorten the no wake zone in Broad Creek in Washington to protect facilities at Washington Yacht and Country Club, Pamlico Plantation HOA Dock, and McCotter's Marina and Boatyard, to remove the no wake zone in Catalina Creek in the town of Bellhaven, as there are not sufficient hazards to boater safety, and this no wake zone has never been marked. Remove the no wake zone in a small area of Tranters Creek in Beaufort County, as there is little vessel traffic there and no diminished sight lines. Remove the no wake zone at Little Creek in Chakawinity, as there is minimal vessel traffic there, which is mostly personal watercraft. And to add to the NCAC for information and education, the names and addresses of boating access areas, and also designate responsibility for implementing placement of regulatory markers. Next, 10F.0310 Dare County. These are amendments to add into the NCAC the Stumpy Point boating access area, and also to designate responsibility for implementing placement of regulatory markers in Dare County. 10F0329 Rowan County, amendments to remove the no wake zone on High Rock Lake in a cove at Second Creek at Clyde Pool Road in Salisbury, as there are not sufficient hazards to boater safety in this quiet cove. Incorporate names and addresses of boating access areas in Rowan County, and designate responsibility for implementing markers on High Rock Lake, Tuckertown Reservoir, and Yadkin River in Rowan County. Then Exhibit K, 10F.0354 Pitt County. This also is on that same part of Tranters Creek in Pitt County, to remove the no wake zone there, as there are no navigational hazards, no diminished sight lines, and no docks on this side of the creek, and also to designate responsibility for implementing placement of regulatory markers in Pitt County. And lastly, 10F0368, the town of Nags Head. This is a request to publish notice of text with an open comment period and public hearing to repeal the rule for the town of Nags Head in the waters of Roanoke Sound near Old Nags Head subdivision, as there are insufficient hazards to boater safety, no history of boating accidents, and the no-wake zone has been unmarked for years. After the open comment period, the commission will consider adoption of these requested amendments and the repeal at a meeting early next year. Staff recommends consideration and adoption of these.
Thank you, Betsy. Do we have a motion for exhibit H, I, J, K, and L?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Winter.
I'd just like to say, I made some comments about not fixing it, if it wasn't broken yesterday. After some conversations, yesterday afternoon, with people a lot wiser than I am, I understand totally, relying on the matrix and what you guys do, for setting a standard going forward so that everything is graded and under the same set of circumstances going forward. And I just wanted that.
Thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
There may be hope for him after all, Chairman.
Thank you.
Next, we'll call on Corey Oakley, the Fisheries Division, to present permit rulemaking adoption for annual cycle of inventory free runs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm bringing before you Exhibit M1, which is the inland fishery rules for 2026. Those rules that we went over yesterday in the Committee of the Whole include trout rules in the mountains, spotted sea trout, white bass, largemouth bass, and a few other rules. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those, but staff recommend approval at this time.
Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of exhibit M? Opposed? Thank you. Next, we'll call on Darren Barnes to present the permit rulemaking adoption for annual cycle of land and water rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have exhibit N1 today. I can get to it for you. Yeah, here we go. I have exhibit N1 here for you today that was discussed in the Committee of the Whole yesterday extensively. And so I would like to present exhibit N1, which is the rule proposal for the 26-27 rule cycle here today for your approval.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Second by West. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? So carries. The next call on Brad Howard to present the permit rulemaking adoptions for the annual cycle of wildlife management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present Exhibit O1, which are the Wildlife Management Division proposed rule changes as presented yesterday in the Committee of the Whole meeting. The staff recommends adoption of these rules.
Do I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Next.
I'll move on to Exhibit P1, Mr. Chairman. These are the rule proposals for wildlife captivity and rehabilitation as presented yesterday in the Committee of the Whole. Staff recommends adoption of this exhibit as well.
I have a motion. Second by David. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? P1 carries. Thank you, Margo. Next, comments by the chair. I'd just like to echo what previous chairman has said. I'd like to thank all the committees for their hard work. Obviously, this meeting moves fast because all the work's been done behind the scenes. So I'd like to thank staff, committee chairs, in particular the committees for all their hard work. I'd like to remind everybody in this room and all our constituents that this is the best time of year. Hunting season has begun. It is your responsibility. There's only 5% of our population that hunts. We need to be taking the next generation, your friends and family. And if you can't, take some of your kids, your grandkids, friends that don't have an opportunity because the barrier to entry is typically a mentor and access to land. So I challenge each and every hunter in North Carolina this year to take somebody, train somebody that has not gone. We have one piece of new business. Before I turn it over to our executive director, I'd like to call on Commissioner Wes Seegers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In years past, we've had the opportunity to, with some regularity, recognize those that, both staff and commissioners that have exhibited exemplary service, dedication to the mission of the commission. I'm pleased today, after discussing with, past Chairman Crump and current Commission Chairman Craig, that we'd like to nominate Kelly Davis to name a boat ramp in Hyde County on her behalf to demonstrate openly dedication and commitment she's made to this organization for her time that's been served. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that, now, let me back up before I make the motion. Because there are a number of boat ramps in Hyde County, I'm not sure which is exactly one that Kelly would identify with. So this is a little bit of the chicken to egg. I didn't want to say anything to her before we pass this resolution, but I think we'll leave it open for her to make the choice of which one we would do, that we would dedicate in her name. And once we, if in fact we move forward with this, I'll be happy to contact her and then get back with staff as to which site that she selects. So, but my guess probably is either Swan or Single Park, one of the two. We're gonna let her make that call. But with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the nomination to move forward with a resolution that we name a boat ramp of her choice in Hyde County after her for service she's provided to this commission.
I'd like to Brown to second.
Second.
Our Tommy will. Any discussion?
Yeah, like I say, well deserved and very,
Yeah,
very thoughtful.
me too.
Great, good suggestion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments from the executive director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I wanted to acknowledge the loss of one of our staff since the last, Clay Allen, technician at the Sucksville Depot, and is very passionate about waterfowl and impoundment management, game land management in general. He will be missed by all of his coworkers. I ask that everyone keep his family in your thoughts this difficult time for them. On a bit happier note, I also wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the upcoming retirement of Colonel Ben Meyer. Happier for him, not for us. I cannot overstate my appreciation for his leadership and friendship, especially over the last decade as he's been serving as our assistant training director, major administration, and as colonel. I really appreciate everything he's done. We will certainly miss him. And then wanted to let y'all know, we just held our first ever draw for permit hunts on our newly acquired Willow Point saltwater impoundment in Hyde County. We had 2,084 applications for 82 permits. So it demonstrates the popularity of the decision y'all made in proceeding with the acquisition of that property. And we're hoping that all of those others have success. And then lastly, I wanted to thank all of the commissioners for all of your support and guidance, and all of staff for their hard work and dedication. That concludes my report.
Any further business?
Mr. Chairman, just, I want to reiterate, Colonel, what you saw today, San McCann, obviously I've had a very close connection with San McCann, living 35 minutes away, being involved in everything that's going on down there, and know that the administration, even if they changed very well, but our Colonel was deeply involved in what you saw today, his leadership, his dedication, which clearly, and he puts these great people in charge, Chad, Mr. Good, Officer Enoch, put all it, and he made right decisions to put him right in charge. Colonel, we're great for that, and your legacy will live on in what we saw.
Thank you, Monty, and yours will too. We appreciate it.
Commissioner Holt.
And to kind of tag on to that, if y'all want to, the chairman and vice chair to lead by example and be tasered.
Potentially.
Thank y'all for what y'all done and agreeing to take those two seats, and you've done a good job. I look forward to the next couple of years under y'all.
No further business.